What happened in the first chapter of Bereshit? It says, in the beginning, Yehovah created the heavens and the earth. And then what else did he do? He went on to create a whole bunch of other things. He created trees, the trees that do what? Bear fruit. He created life in the waters. He created the birds in the air. He created the animals, and ultimately he created you and I. This idea of creation, Elohim saw that it was good. This whole first chapter of Bereshit represents you and I. As individuals, we recognize that we have the capacity to bear fruit, that we contain life within us, and that we are to be fruitful and multiply. And this doesn't simply mean to procreate. To be fruitful and to multiply plays into love your neighbor as you love yourself. It means that I'm going to help somebody else so that that person can also be fruitful and multiply. That I'm going to give of myself to other people so that what I do, the things that I give, I am basically reflecting that, being in the image and likeness of Elohim, I'm reflecting it back. And that's what being fruitful and multiplying is, that I'm being fruitful and multiplying the word of Elohim to the world, that I'm being fruitful and multiplying love, compassion, mercy, kindness, all the traits that we talk about during this time of the Count of the Omer. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Another meaning for this word, though, comes from the Proto-Hebrew. The Proto-Hebrew is not really that great at drawing the thingy there. Is this, which means from Retz, means authority. We have the Resh, and then we have the Proto-Hebrew Zadi, which the Proto-Hebrew Zadi means to ensnare, to trap. So what is this telling us? That the other option, other than being fruitful and multiplying and showing love, is to be ensnared by authority. What was Paul trying to say in Galatians? He wasn't talking about the instruction of Elohim. He wasn't talking about Torah. The bondage of the law that Paul was talking about in Galatians is he's talking about the bondage that we come under if we get bound by takanot, the rabbinical decrees of that time, the things that we talked about, that you got to put your right shoe on first and then put your left shoe on and then tie your right shoe and then tie your left shoe. These kind of oppressive things that keep you in bondage. You know, this was such a serious thing in the 1800s that a district close to where this takanot, this rabbinical decree had come out, actually wrote and said, we have a problem because our shoes don't have shoelaces. What do we do? And this is, it's kind of silly, but this is how serious this bondage is, that people aren't even going to put their shoes on without, that's not what Torah is. And this idea here is to be under bondage. Now, something else that the Proto-Hebrew of Eretz represents, the storyline that the Proto-Hebrew gives, is that pots were broken and the shards of broken pottery were used to communicate. So another idea that we get from Eretz is that we're broken pottery without our Elohim. That we inscribe our message on broken things, and our message is received from broken things. Everybody with me on that? So we have a choice in Eretz to either be fruitful, to build a relationship with our Elohim, to allow those trees to bear fruit, to allow the life to live, to share this light in this fruit of others, or to be like a broken vessel that's under bondage of some kind of authority. So let's kind of review the ideas that we've established so far so that we can start to come to a conclusion as we come to the end of the verse. Number one, something that existed in the time before and was there from earliest time, over a time ceased to exist. It departed because its authority was questioned and opposed, and then action was taken to stop or prevent its occurrence. Number two, spiritual poverty can be defined as an ability to hear from the Ruach due to a poor perception of the word and lack of communication with Yahuwah Elohim. This in itself will stop or greatly hinder our relationship with Yahuwah. Number three, YMCU means to find, but it also means to attain, to acquire, to devise, and to learn, but it can also mean to occur. The word for plain is vikah, which means plain or valley, but it comes from a root bakah that means to split, to divide, or to make a breach. And then finally, eretz means in the land, eretz meaning land, but it means earth as well. That's what we've just talked about. We can either bear fruit, or we can be like broken pottery that depends on something that's broken, and that we come under bondage to that brokenness. So, if we combine all this, what is it that we might be able to come up with so far? If we combine these thoughts, if we take these thoughts and kind of push them together. You see, there's a process of taking these verses a little at a time and building one word at a time.
Well, it's going to be far-fetched. I don't know, but if you're taking it to be fruitful and to love your neighbor as you love yourself, and you're not a broken piece of pottery, then you become a vessel for him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Well, if we take all this together, we say something that existed in the time before and was there in the earliest time ceased to exist over a time. It departed because its authority was questioned and opposed, and then the action was taken to stop or prevent the occurrence, caused spiritual poverty that can bring on an inability to hear from the Ruach due to a poor perception of the word or lack of communication with Yahuwah Elohim. From our study last week, what did we consider that was going on from this contrast, that we have so much junk being fed into religiosity that we don't know what to believe and what not to believe. And because of this, because people would simply take whatever's thrown at them, accept it for face value without taking the time to study, without taking the time to pray, that they become basically spiritually poor, to where they're no longer in that communication with Elohim. Again, we have a responsibility. So next we can consider the effects of that particular condition. This in itself will stop or greatly hinder our relationship with Yahuwah. This condition affects our ability to receive, acquire, and attain guidance or learn from Yahuwah through His Word. This causes a rift, a split, a breach, or a division between us and Yahuwah Elohim. So we see that it's much more than just taking a journey east. That this journey that we take, if we understand that we are on a journey, we have to understand that we have to basically pack that bag to be prepared to take this journey, because if we go just to go and we take whatever provisions that such and so has given us, or the best-selling author, or televangelist this guy, or rabbi that guy, or even me. If you haven't taken the time to look at it and make sure it's adequately prepared, then you may run out of adequate food on the journey. So the outcome of this state of being is that we have the capacity to bear fruit, that we contain life within us, and that we are to be fruitful and multiply, which is more than simply to procreate, that we are to love our neighbor as ourselves, helping others to grow and be productive in their lives as well. Or we become ensnared by authority. We are like broken pottery, and this broken pottery that we use is what we use to understand Elohim. So if we consider the last word in our phrase, which is Shinar, this word means the country of two rivers. To get a clear idea as to what this has to do with our idea, let's look at the balance of the verse. It says, and they dwelt there. Vayeshevu sham. The word Vayeshevu is used to say, and they dwelt. The root yasab also means to remain or to abide. Okay, so we're remaining or abiding somewhere. We're taking up residence someplace. The word sham is maybe our key to understanding here. Although it does mean there, it's basically a pronoun. The Proto-Hebrew explains that one is known by the breath or spirit of his character. One is known by the breath or the spirit of his character. If we consider that, when we go back to Shinar, let's write this up there, and what do we see? What do we see in Shinar? It's means the country of two rivers. The Proto-Hebrew of river is Nahar. It means river, but it has kind of a different idea going on in the Proto-Hebrew. Here's that one I can't draw. Here's the other one that I can barely draw. That in the Nun it represents a continuance, something that goes on, and then again the Resh, a continuance of authority. A continuance of authority in the Proto-Hebrew. If we keep this in mind, we also keep in mind that we have a choice now. It means the country of two rivers. We have a choice as to which river that we're going to follow. Now, if we look at Shinar, and we consider that we have a choice of two rivers, and that one of them is a continuance of authority, and another one perhaps is not a continuance of authority, or is a continuance of authority. They're both a continuance of authority, let's say, but one is an authority of the flesh, and the other one is the authority of Elohim. Keeping that in mind and based on the Hebrew letters, what do we see in Shinar? We see Shin that represents what? We say we have a front side of Shin and a back side of Shin. We have what then? 2 points of view. 2 points of view. We have our point of view based on our carnal perception of what's going on. They say that the backside of Shin is basically the point of view that Satan waves in front of us, that distracts us away from the authority of Elohim to follow on our bellies, eating the dust of the ground. Where the front side of Shin is Elohim's point of view. It's what's being done in our best interest. And a prime example of this is Yeshua is talking to the disciples and saying, I'm going to be arrested, they're going to beat me up, they're going to put me to death. And before he can spit out another word, Peter says, no, don't speak that way. What are you saying? And Yeshua says what? He says, get behind me, Satan. What is he saying? He's saying, Peter, turn your shin around. Stop looking at things from your carnal point of view. You have to see things from the front side of shin. You have to see them from the point of view of Elohim. That this is going to happen, but it's going to happen for your well-being, for your restoration, for your redemption, for your deliverance. So, what do we see in the shin is whose point of view? Now, in the nun, is basically nun, the root of nun. You know, the first time that we see nun as the root of a word in Torah is in nefashim. It's the life that's in the waters. Okay, we also see it that when Elohim breathed into the nostrils of the clay person that he made, that this person became a nefesh, a living nefesh, a living being. So, represents life. Now, ayin, what is ayin? Represents our perception, right? And then resh, well, the first time we see resh at the root of the word is in Bereshis, which means in beginning, but resh literally means authority. So what are we seeing in Shinar? That we're taking two rivers, or we have two rivers in front of us. Which river are we going to take? That our life is based on our perception of the authority of what? Either our point of view or Elohim's point of view. Can our point of view and Elohim's point of view be the same point of view?
It can be.
It can be. There are times that it's not. What happens when our point of view and Elohim's point of view are different? It's because we want to do something on the carnal side, but we realize that there has to be a continuance of authority. And this is where we have to make the decision as to whose authority am I going to go with. We say the Ruach is sitting there saying, that's not a good idea. Don't do that. There's going to be consequences. I'm not going to put down the consequences, but you're going to cause consequences for yourself. That's not a good idea. And we say, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. And then what happens? What happens is that very shortly thereafter, we're making teshuvah. And we're backing up to go down the right river. So we understand that in Shinar, where they abide, is the place that we come to make the right decision or the wrong decision. It's the counting of the Omar. Why do we take 49 days to self-examine ourselves to the level that hopefully we are? It's because we want to be ready for when the Shekinah falls, when the Word, the Torah, comes to us, when the Ruach whispers in our ear. It's not just at Shavuot, but it's every day. We want to be ready to be an appropriate vessel, just like Susan says, be a whole vessel, not a broken vessel. It's basically going to leak everything out. We want to be a full, whole vessel to hold everything in. So, we ask these questions. Where do I abide? In the authority of Yahuwah Elohim or in my own authority? What river have I chosen to go down? And the answer to our questions will help us to aid in the completion of our thought for this verse. And the thought that we get is we put everything that we've talked about together. And it says something that existed in a time before and was there from the earliest time, ceased to exist over a time. It departed because